NFL Live. Adam Schefter, tell us what's going on in Washington.
RC, Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders have reached agreement on a 3-year deal worth up to $96 million. McLaurin was entering the last year of his contract and obviously looking for a raise. The two sides have been discussing a deal. We are at August 25th. The season opens next week. The Commanders are busy getting ready for the regular season opener against the New York Giants. McLaurin hasn't practiced this summer, and if there were a time to get a deal done to keep alive his chances of playing in that regular season opener, this would be it. This morning, they reached agreement on a deal that will end his hold-in, allow him to get back on the practice field, and means he'll suit up week 1.
Welcome to NFL Live. The voice you just heard and the face you just saw was Adam Schefter. I'm Ryan Clark, your host today. Phil Yates and Dan O sitting with me. Dan O, listen, I've been working with you this entire offseason, and you talked about how important it was to get Terry McLaurin signed, not only for the Commanders, but for the young quarterback, Jaden Daniels. What do you think of the deal?
Massive, needed. You weren't a real contender in the division without Terry McLaurin. I also think just bring it to the football field. This offense without Terry McLaurin was playing in red zone spacing in the open field. Meaning, when you play down in the red zone as an offense, everyone talks about how the field gets shrunk down. The defense only has to defend 20 yards of depth, 30 yards of depth. It would have been the case in the open field without Terry McLaurin like that. Teams would just have played so much closer to the line of scrimmage. Now, with Terry back, you get the vertical presence of your offense back. The Jaden Daniels rookie season that we saw with so many of those magical throws downfield, not only the clutch ones, but that connection. It also allows Debo to live in Debo's role. It also allows the Luke McCaffrey to live in the Luke McCaffrey role. So the impact that he has on this football team and its ability to win games, I think is on par with the Jamar Chase and a Justin Jefferson because of the way that he allows that offense and specifically Jaden to push the ball downfield.
One more football note. You said they're playing with red zone spacing right now. Now they can go back to normalcy, but in the red zone, he also was their best player by far last season. Last season, when Jaden Daniels targeted Terry McLaurin in the red zone, he was 12 of 14, 9 touchdowns. That's bonkers, silly video game numbers. On top of the football impact, I think we all know this, and I've talked about this throughout the offseason. He's on the short list, if not the most respected player in the entire locker room. This is the kind of guy that could one day win the NFL's Walter Payton Man of the Year award. That's the kind of respect that Terry McLaurin has around the league. It's not easy to deal with any contract negotiation. It's especially difficult when this is a guy who has been through so much and been sort of the exemplary part of the locker room. Obviously, Jaden Daniels' arrival has totally changed the trajectory of this franchise, but Terry McLaurin was the kind of player that did everything right during the most difficult times for Washington, RC. This was a must-do to get done. I'm glad they found some middle.
Yeah, for me, it's about common sense prevailing, about understanding what Terry McLaurin means to this team, not only with his production and what we see on the field, but what he means to this team in the locker room, how he helped a young Jaden Daniels become the offensive rookie of the year. And the one thing you don't want is to have this team set back by not signing one of their best football players, but also one of their best people. And if you're the Washington Commanders, you're trying to figure out how to make back-to-back playoffs since the last time I won the 12-year-old Little League championship as a quarterback of the Terrytown
12-year-old Little League football
championship.
What position was you?
I was the quarterback. Absolutely.
A lot of options.
Let's get to some more top stories with Shefty. Terry McLaurin, not the only person looking for a new deal. Tell us what's going on with Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons also would like a new deal, but he and the Cowboys have not discussed one in months. And once again, Micah Parsons not at practice again today. The Cowboys open their season a week from Thursday night, and it doesn't look like Parsons will be able to play. And if he does, he would be limited at best with the fact that the two sides have not been able to get a deal done, and Parsons hasn't practiced all summer. Meanwhile, the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson at least have some dialogue going. They recognize the time on the calendar it is. We'll see if the two sides can figure out a way to get a deal done. They've been trying to get a deal done for the better part of 2 off seasons and really 4 years. If you really look at it, no deal yet. We'll see if they could find a way. And just in to ESPN's NFL Live, the Houston Texans are not going to activate Joe Mixon by Tuesday's 4 p.m. Eastern deadline. He will be moved to the non-football injury active list. Well, basically, he cannot play the first 4 games of the season at least. Now, this has been a very mysterious injury. He essentially was on the non-football injury list, which means it was an ankle injury that wasn't related to something that he did on the football field. He will miss at least the first 4 games. And until somebody says something different, I think there are questions about when and if Joe Mixon will play again this season.
This is absolutely huge news, not only for the Houston Texans as a team, but for third-year quarterback C.J. Stroud. Dan, how big is this news about Joe Mixon?
Absolutely enormous. One of the best backs in football. This is an offense down in Houston that is, to your point, third-year C.J. Stroud, breaking in a new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, and relatively 5 new offensive starters as a group together. So to not have the premier back attached to that is a big deal. Second of all, we've worked with him long enough. If Schefter is saying something about the uncertainty
And
of
if
post the 4 games, there's that makes me give a lot of hesitation to what Joe Mixon's future is like going to be after those 4 games.
Yeah, and what scares me about this is Joe Mixon was so important to this team, the physicality that he played with, even on a team that wasn't great up front last year. And so now you're thinking about C.J. Stroud, who has all of these weapons on the outside. That play action game, to me, is going to be a huge part of his success. And I think it takes a big hit without having Joe Mixon on the field. You don't know if it's going to be 4 games or more, but for the hopes of DeMeco Ryans and his team, you definitely hope he's back sooner than later. Let's get to some Week 3 preseason play. We have Dylan Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders. I mean, I thought it was the Cleveland Browns versus the Rams.
Team versus team.
Hey, listen, we're going to start out with Dylan Gabriel in the 2-minute. This is going to be a great throw. He's going to go up top, Dan. What do you see from Dylan Gabriel here?
His timing and anticipation really has started to show out on the third downs. The ball comes out before the receivers are looking for it, and that leads to those guys being comfortable with yards after the catch.
Shedeur Sanders needs to do different here.
Yeah, you saw in the Carolina game, he had a similar situation where he moves and then throws the touchdown pass.
This against BYU in the bowl game. That's a 24-yard sack, but the Cleveland Browns do win the game 19-17. Derek Carr questioned the Browns' decision to pull Sanders late in the 4th quarter. He tweeted, "I need to understand why we don't get to see Shedeur Sanders run this 2-minute drill. Wouldn't you want to see your young QB operate in this situation, get him more reps for the future? I didn't see the whole game, so maybe he already showed enough. Help me understand this." The questioning of Stefanski continued during his press conference availability on Sunday.
Can you address this sort of persistent narrative that you're trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders, especially after yesterday and not putting him in for the 2-minute?
Yeah, obviously, I don't concern myself with outside type of things. But I'm committed to his development, just like all of our rookies. So we'll continue to focus on getting our guys better. And that's what we'll stay committed to, and that's what's important to me.
Dan, one thing that sticks out to me, he says, continue to focus on Shedeur's development and all of our rookies. One of those other rookies is Dylan Gabriel. What did you think about the way both of those guys were utilized in this game?
Utilized, they were both given the opportunities that kind of where they were slotted when it comes to their draft selection, and probably their practices have warranted. I think what you saw was one with some bad habits and traits showing up, and then with good habits and traits. This is Shedeur in the fumble. The receiver in motion is going to get open at the top of his break. Ball's got to be out right now. That's NFL timing. That's NFL windows. He holds on to it. It leads to a sack fumble. That's something that he's going to have to grow and develop of understanding how quickly it happens. This one, the defense wins the rep. They call it bootleg. The defender's there. It's first down at the 48-yard line. Instead of throwing it away, we run for a 3-yard loss, and it becomes that 2nd and 12 and a half, 2nd and 13. Okay, now we're 2nd and 13. The ball should get out to the tight end. But now we're running around trying to dance, and again, it's a loss of yardage of 6 yards, and we're hurting the football team. This is Dylan Gabriel, 3rd and 10. The backer up top right near the hash is going to trigger. Look how quickly he plays. Sees that guy vacate. He wants to be in between those 2 second-level defenders with the ball placed in the tight end. He knows that the tight end's running that 10-yard hook route. Ball's out now. Receiver's not looking for it, guys. This is the anticipation, the NFL timing that matters. That ball is out before that receiver's open, and it's out of his hands in 2 seconds. That's how you minimize a pass rush. This is that thrash sail route, bottom of the screen. You're going to want to throw that deep corner. It's 3rd and 6. 1, 2, 3 hits. The ball's coming out of his hands in 2.3 seconds before Thrash is running that route, and he flattens it. And I always say this. You can have anticipation without accuracy, and you can have accuracy without anticipation. It won't make you good. Can you have the anticipation and the accuracy? Gabriel has that at the NFL world right now. Right now, Shedeur doesn't. He's just got to grow and develop to get that.
Yeah, specific to this game, because we have seen some bright moments from Shedeur Sanders during the preseason and some not so bright moments from Dillon Gabriel throughout the preseason. But this looked like the bad stuff that we saw from Shedeur at Colorado and the very good stuff that we saw from Dillon Gabriel at 3 separate college stops. Shedeur Sanders did not play with nearly enough urgency. He took more sacks than any other FBS quarterback last season. As far as of escapability as other quarterbacks that we are going to see on Sundays this fall. As for Dillon Gabriel, every play that he ran in college football was multiple options within one play. And he's showing that in the NFL, that he can play with a great sense of urgency and make decisions fast enough to move the sticks.
Yeah, I think the big thing is this was never Dillon Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders, right? This is each player versus themselves. How do they individually process and progress throughout training camp? And if you watch this game and you really tap into the film the way Dan just did, you understand that at least right now, Dillon Gabriel is a step ahead of Shedeur Sanders, which is probably why the depth chart read the way it did headed into this game. And Shefty, we all know that you're tapped in more than anyone. What are you hearing about this depth chart and the way it'll shake out at the start of the season?
Well, RC, we know that Joe Flacco is going to start the regular season opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. We also know that Kenny Pickett has not been operating at full strength due to a hamstring injury. Dillon Gabriel has been drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders and at times has looked more impressive in the preseason than Shedeur Sanders. So you would think going into that regular season opener that Flacco would be one, and I think there's a real possibility that Dillon Gabriel could wind up serving as the backup quarterback on opening day. We'll see how Pickett's hamstring is feeling if it allows for him to be the backup, but those would be the guys you'd be looking at as the backup.
Yeah, it's still a lot of things to get figured out for the Cleveland Browns and their quarterback situation. This is something that I'm pretty sure they're used to
it's been a
around
long
there.
road.
Hey, but we're just getting started on NFL Live. Still no deal for Michael Parsons. And this weekend, my dog was caught laying down on the job. But will Jerry Jones stand on business? Caleb Williams played good ball this preseason, but new head coach Ben Johnson didn't seem that impressed after last game. Daniel heads to the touchscreen to break down the highs and lows of his performance.
Oh, you know what else I was surprised about Gabriel? Ball pops off his hand.
He's got a little more power.
More arm strength than I.
Williams' final numbers Friday night were solid. He finished 11 of 15, 113 yards, and a touchdown pass. But new head coach Ben Johnson did not like what he saw, especially early on in the game. He addressed it post-game.
And offensively, first 2 possessions was really sloppy football that has plugged us in and out of camp so far, and unfortunately that's what we got here tonight. Good news is, we'll be able to look at this tape and coach it up with our guys, and I think it's out of our system, hopefully, for us going into the regular season.
Dano, did you have the same level of pessimism that
the minute we see them on the field in 2 weeks from today
in
on
September.
Monday Night Football,
Sure.
right? This is going to take some time because the Bears have talked about overloading Caleb Williams with as much as they possibly could early on in training camp, seeing what works and seeing what he can develop, and then taking all of the information, the snapshot of August, and turning it into September progress. I would say on the whole, wasn't perfect. I thought there was more progress than steps back or reasons for concern from Caleb Williams.
Yeah, listen, we're not expecting perfection from Caleb Williams.
I think some people are, which is crazy.
To me, what you're expecting is to see him continue to grow, not only necessarily in the physical tools that we already know he can display, but the way he processes the game, the way he recovers from seeing a play one time, headed to the sideline, talking about it, and then executing the way that Dan showed us on the sail route to Rome Odunze. That's what I want to see from Caleb Williams. The ability to handle the adversity and then play better the next time out.
I also think it's this. It's not just Caleb learning Ben Johnson. There's a Ben Johnson learning Caleb.
Yeah.
And so maybe he watches that double inbreaker that I showed and said, well, maybe Caleb doesn't see that well right now or flawlessly, but then you watch him see the inbreaker and the outbreaker and go, oh, he's got a comfort level in seeing that stuff. So I think part of that is the evolution and the learning process from the coach of what does this guy really like to see and how many different plays can I build into that world?
It's truly about how efficient can Caleb Williams be. And if there's one thing that Ben Johnson knows, it's efficiency, because the Detroit Lions were the most efficient offense the last 2 seasons under Ben Johnson. But still to come, Bo Nix had a rookie Josh McDaniels and new star wide receiver Stephon Diggs.
I think I'm pumped up. I think anytime you get a chance to go into a game and you'll see how the game plan works, and you get to see a little bit in preseason, but now it's full go. Kind of game plan a team and watching tape, with him in there, and just seeing what he's seeing and try to be on the same page. That's whether it's extra work with him or extra work out of practice from the film room, but it's good for us to use him, as much as he's able to, handle. And I think it's excited to get out there and throw him a couple footballs and then building the chemistry in practice. I think we've got to kind of built it here lately, and I think just kind of carry that into the season.
Drake May with some youthful exuberance. Let's dive a little deeper on some of these second-year quarterbacks and see what's on trend. We start with Drake May in New England, who pretty much has a brand new offensive line this season, right? 8 new offensive linemen, 4 of them likely starting in week 1. The Pats ranked second worst in pass block last year. So, Phil, the trend of this O-line, does it continue?
Yeah, I think it gets better. I think it has a chance to get closer to league average. I'm not as concerned about the tackle duo. I think there's 2 solid pieces in place there. I want to see the Patriots tap into Drake May's legs this year to help out his offensive line. When a defense thinks there is a threat for the quarterback to run, it just allows them or forces them to rush a little bit differently. Drake May, of course, an outstanding scrambler when given the chance to tap into his lower half.
Okay, let's go to Minnesota, where we talk a little bit about J.J. McCarthy. He will be the 3rd starting quarterback under Kevin O'Connell. The first 2 fared pretty well. Kirk Cousins in 2022 and Sam Darnold last year. Both started every single game that year. Both won at least 13 games, and both made it to a Pro Bowl. Dio, do you expect KO to get that same sort of play out of J.J. McCarthy?
I very much so do. One, because J.J.'s skill set is custom made to be in this offense when it comes to the play action game. The other element is this offensive line is very good, and they have, when healthy, a plethora of weapons. Athletically, he's perfect for what they want to do. The one thing that is going to be the determining factor between him lighting it up and reaching those levels is his arm is plenty strong to drive the football. How much does he grow in some of those touch throws up over those second levels will determine how good he becomes this season.
All right, let's take it to the A-Town and talk a little bit about Michael Penix. We didn't get to see Michael Penix a ton last year, but one trend stood out above the rest. Look at how much he valued pushing the football down the field, showing that strong arm. 14% of his throws, and that ranked 4th in the NFL. Cousins ranked 34th in that category. Adam, how hard will it be to keep this trend going for Michael Penix Jr. with some of the issues they have on the O-line?
Well, RC, keep in mind, Caleb McGarry is out with a knee injury. Could be 6, 7, 8 weeks, but it sounds like it's going to be, in the words of the Falcons, significant time. He plays right tackle. He protects Michael Penix's blind side. And the player that backs him up is Storm Norton. He's now out for 6 to 8 weeks. So they are missing 2 tackles that would protect Michael Penix's blind side. That could be a potential issue for the Atlanta Falcons.
Bo Nix came straight out of Oregon balling. Last year, he led all rookies in passing yards and passing touchdowns. His 29 pass touchdowns were also sixth most among all NFL quarterbacks. The Broncos made their first playoff appearance since winning the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50. Dan, looking at this trend and this good play of Bo Nix, do you expect that to continue in his second year?
I do. One, Denver as a football team has the best combination of offensive and defensive lines in that conference, if not for Baltimore. That's how good this football team is going to be, and we've talked about the defense. That offensive line will be a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. I think the two things that I'm most interested about with this offense, one, Sean Payton has talked about the joker for his offense, right? And that's the addition of Evan Ingram. Think of Jimmy Graham with the New Orleans Saints. And RC, you know this. The thing about it is Evan really came onto the scene a ton in Jacksonville as a touches guy. They would just get him, find ways to get him touches, and he was really good with the ball in his hands. But the joker role that Jimmy Graham played for Sean Payton was extend him out, get him those one-on-one opportunities, and it's twofolded. One, gather information for the quarterback. Is it man or is it zone? By who's defending him? Is it going to be cover 1 or cover 2 safeties, okay? And then 2 is you got to win the matchup for it to really have a benefit. Evan Ingram necessarily hasn't dominated that role, so I just want to see what's the evolution for him in this new role with Sean Payton and that joker. And then Franklin. Franklin was that 4th-round pick, that long wide receiver. They need another guy opposite Cortland. Mims a nice player opposite Cortland Sutton to really have it go to the next level. Is Franklin going to be that guy in year 2?
I'm excited about this team, though. You mentioned the offensive line being one of the best. Well, they were number 1 last year in both pass block win rate and run block win rate. They've returned the entirety of the offensive line from the 2024 season. The part that has me most excited about Bo Nix going into this season is what we saw in the second half of last year. Bo, in college, had one of the lowest yards per attempt that final year at Oregon.
Yes.
And that carried over to the beginning of his career. Look, the first half of last season, no touchdowns and 3 picks on balls 20-plus yards down the field. He became an entirely different player in the second half of last year. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, those 20-plus air yard throws. He was throwing strikes way down the field. I got to imagine a lot of that's just confidence. Obviously, I didn't play quarterback then, but the arm strength has always been there for Bo. But something clicked mentally that made him feel like he can push the football down the field and threaten defenses in a way that he wasn't for the first 9 weeks.
Listen, this is an offense that felt there was an opportunity with Bo Nix here in his second season. Went out and added Evan Ingram, went out and added R.J. Harvey in the draft, added weapons all along the offense, and the Broncos feel like they're poised to make a jump in his second season. When they go 10-7 in his rookie year and his touchdown to interception ratio is 29-12, there's no reason that Bo Nix in his second season shouldn't be even better.
I tell you what, leave it to the defensive guy to say, man, the heck with Bo Nix and what's on trend. Let's talk about what Vance Joseph, the defense coordinator, has been doing in Denver, and now what he has with Talanoa Hufanga coming over from San Francisco, Dre Greenlaw, the reigning defensive player of the year, and Pat Surtain. I love the fact that this defense continued to get better. Think back to 2 years ago. They gave up 70 points to Miami. They were the laughingstock of the entire league. And since then, all they've done is gotten better. And so you couple that with Bo Nix being more confident, pushing the football down the field, Sean Payton having another year with this young quarterback, and what I believe is going to be an improved run game. I'm really excited about who the Denver Broncos could be.
Rightfully so, we've all kind of crowned the best roster, at least I think, in the AFC is Baltimore. But after we rattle off these names, I'm like, my goodness.
Who has the fewest holes?
Yeah.
It might be Denver.
Yeah.
Now, there's a difference between being the best and having the fewest holes, right? Like you might have a higher floor but a lower ceiling. But there's no area where I say to myself, if Denver needs to improve here dramatically to compete.
Well, if Bo takes a massive year 2 step, because right now the biggest disparity is obviously
the quarterback.
Right. But if he takes a massive second year step, you're talking about a team that no question is the divisional round guy.
Yeah, and I mean, Cortland Sutton is a big piece to that. He got his money this offseason, and when you look at what Bo Nix was able to do when throwing to him, he had twice as many air yards to Cortland Sutton than anybody else that was on that team. But coming up, the Commanders. All right, y'all, it's a home game for me. We talking second lines and Mardi Gras. We're going to head to my neck of the woods, and there's still no quarterback named in the New Orleans Saints battle. Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck finished off their preseason pretty much identical over the weekend. Rattler got the start, but neither quarterback was able to find the end zone in their loss to the Broncos. Rattler and Shuck have been pretty much identical throughout this preseason when you look at their numbers. What really stood out to me was who moved the football most. 17 passing first downs for Shuck to 10 for Spencer Rattler. Today, Kellen Moore said that, he would turn his attention to the quarterback battle after he made some of the roster cutdowns, and that will be finalized tomorrow. Adam, tell us what you're hearing about this decision.
Well, this is a situation where basically Kellen Moore said that they are trying to make a roster decision, and they are scheduled to practice on Wednesday. I would think before they step on the practice field, the Saints will make an announcement about which starting quarterback will be their guy moving forward, whether it's going to be Spencer Rattler or Kellen or Tyler Shuck, the rookie quarterback. And so we'll see what they decide ultimately. I think that there are people who feel like they can go with Rattler and easily go to Shuck in season, but it's tougher to start with the rookie quarterback, bench him, and then turn to Rattler, who obviously was a rookie in recent seasons.
Chef, you just took my thought.
Yeah.
That would be I would start Spencer Rattler and anticipate Tyler Shuck playing at some point, strictly because, RC, you talked about the numbers. I believe the tape kind of sees that showing similar players. Spencer Rattler's got a good arm. Tyler Shuck has a good arm. They both move relatively well, so they've had some good moments. And to Shefty's point, I just think it's easier as an organization for us to go, all right, Spencer, you're going to get an opportunity. And if it's going great, great. And if not, we're very ready to move on to Tyler Shuck, who seems to be capable of running an offense. So I think either guy, you're going to get similar play.
I think that's what matters for head coach Kellen Moore, though. Are you expecting a failure? Right? If you're expecting that you're going to have to switch quarterbacks at some point because you won't be winning enough games or because the quarterback play won't be good enough, that's not the way you want to start your season. You want to make your decision based on who gives you the best opportunity to win and who gives you that opportunity the earliest. And when you look at the film, it is extremely close. Yeah. I do believe that Spencer Rattler has a level of arm talent that's equal to Tyler Shuck. Totally. I do believe that both of these guys are around the same age. So who sort of has that it factor field that can allow you to win some games early on that people don't expect you to?
I think it's going to be a long year in New Orleans. I really do. I think this roster on paper, and by the way, some of their actions this offseason suggested they understand that a gap year might be necessary. I'm not trying to undercut what this could become for either of these players as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I do think it's important to have a really good self-scout every single year. You got to be mindful. This could be a long year, and there's a good 2026 quarterback class coming around the corner as well. We're going to see a couple of them face off this upcoming Saturday night, where RC's LSU Tigers and Garrett Nussmeier face off against Cade Klubnik and Clemson. In a
the real
game.
Tigers and the real Death Valley field.
But it is I just think you have to and I feel the same way about the. I feel that same way about the Cleveland Browns right now. Is that one of the most? So I think it's important to get an exhaustive scouting report on Tyler Shuck this upcoming season. Doesn't have to be right out of the gates. I also acknowledge that not great infrastructure around him to thrive this upcoming season. So I just think it's an incredibly important process to go through, Dano, but I do think this is going to be a long year either way.
Yeah, so for Kellen Moore, the challenge is going to be, do you share the message to your team of we are playing the guys that are going to give us the best chance to win, but also not getting what you're talking about, Babyface, is with that full evaluation of these guys. Because you take a step back and be like, okay, Spencer Rattler, you should get 9 starts, and Tyler Shuck, you should get 8, or flip-flop it, whatever, because they seem similar players. That seems to be the best way to go about it for the long term. But you as a coach, dangerous world, and you go, we're going to play the best guy, but also we're starting to evaluate what we look like in the future.
Yeah, and I think if you're Kellen Moore, you're just trying to figure this thing out, and it seems like that's the exact same thing that the Dallas Cowboys are trying to figure out. So still ahead, the Cowboys and Micah Parsons.